Many believe that Ibn Khaldun is the greatest Muslim thinker who ever lived. He was born in 1332 in Tunis, then part of the Hafsid Principality, which extended over what are now Tunisia and eastern Algeria. A 15th century pilgrim described Tunis as strongly fortified and populous, with many houses made from white marble, and many houses had round courtyards. Though the city was guarded by Berber cavalry, these wild warriors were not allowed within its walls. As a young man, Ibn Khaldun was privately educated by a series of distinguished scholars, and the fact that he never had to submit to the rigid curriculum of the madrasas, Sunni Muslim religious colleges, may have fostered his later highly original thinking. In 1348, disaster struck. The Black Death, which originated in Central Asia, reached Egypt and then swept across North Africa and reached Tunis. Ibn Khaldun lost his parents, as well as many of his teachers and friends, to the plague. Later in his Muqaddimah, the theoretical prolegomena to the study of history, he wrote as follows: "Civilization, both in the East and the West, was visited by a destructive plague, which devastated nations and caused populations to vanish. It swallowed up many of the good things of civilization and wiped them out. It overtook dynasties at the time of their senility, when they'd reached the limit of their duration. It lessened their power and curtailed their power. It was as if the voice of existence in the world had called out for oblivion and restriction, and the world responded to its call. God inherits the earth and whoever is upon it." The evidence of the vulnerability of dynasties, and indeed civilization itself, would colour Ibn Khaldun's thinking for the rest of his life. In the years that immediately followed, he served various dynasties in North Africa and Muslim Spain as a senior scribe, advisor, or administrator. In particular, he became a specialist in dealing with the nomadic Arab and Berber tribesmen of the North African hinterland, where his mission was to persuade the tribesmen to provide the dynasty in question with taxes or mercenaries. In 1375, he retired from active politics for 2 years and took refuge in Qalat Banu Salima, a remote castle in Algeria, which had been loaned to him by the local tribesmen. The place is now nothing more than a heap of rubble. It was there, with its commanding views of ancient ruins and tribesmen moving among those ruins, that he began to write his masterpiece, the Muqaddimah. As he worked on it in the decades that followed, the Muqaddimah assumed the quality of an encyclopedia and covered such matters as court rituals, economics, magic, poetry, philosophy, and Quranic studies. Nevertheless, at its core was a consideration of the causes of the rise and fall of successive dynasties in North Africa and Muslim Spain, including the Almoravids and the Almohads. Ibn Khaldun noted that the heyday of these and other similar regimes rarely lasted more than 3 generations. In order to explain their rise and fall, he placed great stress on asabiya, which can be translated as esprit de corps or tribal solidarity. In order to survive, members of a tribe in the desert or in some remote highland territory need not only to be tough, but also socially cohesive. As a result, they fight well and find it relatively easy to defeat the non-nomadic troops and then to occupy the cities those troops had been levied to defend. But as the new governing elite, they soon become accustomed to the soft ways of urban living, and they start levying taxes to pay mercenaries to do their fighting for them. And so, in 3 or 4 generations, they're doomed and forced to give way to new nomadic conquerors. Ibn Khaldun's reading ranged widely, and he adduced further material from the Bible and the history of early Islam to support this and other historiographical theorizing. In 1378, Ibn Khaldun returned to Tunis, where he was able to use its libraries to check his facts. In 1382, he moved to Mamluk Egypt, where he was welcomed as an intellectual celebrity and became one of the chief qadis. Cairo was indeed a magnet for scholars. Ibn Khaldun wrote, "He who has not seen Cairo does not know the grandeur of Islam. It is the metropolis of the world, garden of the universe, assemblage of the nations, the anthill of the human species, the portico of Islam, the throne of royalty, a city embellished with palaces and arcades, decorated with dervish monasteries and with schools, and lighted by the moons and stars of erudition. Although Ibn Khaldun usually wrote in plain prose, I've shown in my book, Ibn Khaldun, an intellectual biography, that he was capable of amazing flights of eloquence. In Cairo, Ibn Khaldun added many sections to the Muqaddimah. Also, when Timur invaded Mamluk Syria and besieged Damascus, Ibn Khaldun came out from the city and had a series of meetings with the Turco-Mongol would-be conqueror Timur, also known as Tamerlane. It must have been satisfying for Ibn Khaldun to speak with one of the greatest exemplars of a hardy tribal warrior who so well exemplified the military and social qualities that he had been writing about. Ibn Khaldun died in Cairo in 1406. For centuries, his writings were largely ignored. Yet in the 20th century, the great historian Arnold Toynbee was to describe the Muqaddimah as undoubtedly the greatest work of its kind that has ever been created. And the no less famous historian A.J.P. Taylor wrote, "It is a wonderful experience to read those great volumes, as rich and various, as subtle and deep and formless as the ocean, and to fish up from them ideas old and new." I am Robert Irwin for the Emir-Stein Center. The rediscovery of Ibn Khaldun's ideas will be the subject of another video.
If you want to see more content like this, make sure to like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell notification so you don't miss any new videos.